Hey everyone, it's Dr. Nate from Performance Sports Chiropractic. We're going to go through the Mobility Monday tip of the week. Today we're covering something that I wanted to touch on. It's called hip hinging. And hip hinging is a movement pattern that a lot of people seem to have difficulty with. It's basically being able to dissociate your upper body and your lower body, essentially doing what it's called hinging at the hips. But a lot of people have difficulty making sure that, or bending forward at the hips as opposed to rounding out the low back when they're trying to bend forward. So we're going to try to cover a couple different techniques on how to develop good movement patterns for the hip hinge today. And one way that I coach this up on people is I use a dowel, or in this case like a broomstick here. And I'm going to show you how we coach up the hip hinge pattern here. So what we'll do is we'll align this dowel, and we want to have 3 points of contact, okay? First is up at the top at the head here. The second is going to be up at the upper back region, and the third is going to be right at the top of the butt, okay? So what we want to do is practice keeping this stick in contact with those points as we bend forward, okay? And what the goal is here is that as we bend forward, I keep in contact with the stick at those 3 points, and that we get our movement to be a flattened spine, and we actually want to have your butt moving backwards, okay? So that's part of the problem that people have, is they have difficulty getting that butt moving backwards and keeping their back flat at the same time. So what this exercise is going to do is it's really going to help create good quality movement where we are hinging at the hips, not rounding out the low back. If you notice, my back is staying nice and straight. And you should be able to see that my hips and my butt are driving backwards as we do this, okay? So we're going backwards, and we're able to keep the spine flat, but my hips, like I said multiple times here, are going back, which is what you want to see. You don't want to see people extending the spine like this and getting the butt back. You want to keep the back flat and get that spine and get that butt going backwards. So that's the one way that I coach most of our general population and our athletic population. I do have one modification for some of my elderly clients or patients, or some of the really deconditioned patients that we run into. We're going to have you go onto your hands and knees for this. And what we'll do sometimes is we'll start with our hands directly below the shoulders. My knees are about hip width apart, and they are also directly below my hips here. And what we'll have people do sometimes who can't hip hinge while standing is we'll actually just have them try to drive the hips back towards their heels. So we're coming in and out of this position here. I call this posterior rocking or pelvic rocking, and really we're just trying to get that motion through the hip joints here, of that joint hinging, and we kind of come in and out of this position here. And so this is just a modification for some of the people who have difficulty performing the other movement that we just showed you. So this is called the posterior rocking, but it's the same concept of hinging at the hips here. That's the base level way to start doing it, but for most of you watching this video, you can do it with the dowel, and that's how we would prefer you to do it. The key thing is that you really should feel tension build through the posterior chain, our hamstrings or our glutes. You should not feel a lot of tension build in the low back when you're doing this one. So if you do, kind of check your points of contact with the stick, or check in with a healthcare provider or a professional at a gym or something like that, so they can coach you up further on it. But I just wanted to touch on the basics of hip hinging today. Hopefully that will help. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, always comment, message me, shoot me an email, anything like that. All right, everyone, have a good week.